Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the mini proposal workshop. Today, we are going to work on defining success area, where we already have shared a bit of outputs and outcomes, risks and possible mitigations. So we will go through them, and after that, we are going to continue our discussion under that big scope of defining success, and look at how will the proposed solution address the Catalyst F10 challenges. So if we start thinking about, okay, we have open source standards and we want to create this collaboration between different open source tool sets and platforms, where would that fit best in Catalyst? And also, because it's a mini proposal workshop, meaning that we are trying to educate understanding Catalyst process a little bit too. So there is this learning element of understanding Catalyst challenges in general. And today's session, we would like to now think of knowing now what you kind of know. I know it may be a bit of a glimpse of the huge picture. So all the open questions are open and you can share. And our call would be to select today a challenge setting and describe this current proposal we are writing here right now, and how would we address that challenge which we pick. And do people in here have any questions or something they want to share about the proposal or what we are about to do in this session?
Yeah, Thibaut, if you don't mind. My name is Robert Bruni. I'm one of the founders of ScannerSite.com, and I provide scheduling media content for your calendar with one click. I have a question. I have a platform that fits in so many different category choices, like perfectly. How do I choose the best category, or rather challenge, to be successful in my proposal? Because what I provide is so diverse, and it could fulfill a lot of different challenges. So any advice will be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, that was a perfect session to join into, because that is the place where I am trying to answer from my perspective and from my experience that the same area. So perhaps then taking your advice and actually this current proposal, we are also in the same situation of, okay, we want to do standard platforms for standards for platforms to collaborate. Where would that fit? And in your case, you already have a platform, and it's a bit of a product, and it is a bit of an infrastructure, and it's a place to collaborate. Where would that fit? So there are several strategies, and I like to modularize everything, like makes possibly smaller, like the bigger project to smaller steps, and diversify it into different challenges. It may not suit for everybody, but this is one of the approaches we could take. And I think the best way to start from here perhaps would be to go into the challenge itself and kind of understand what it writes and reason it with. And then we see if we can use the same reasoning for the different challenges and perhaps have some insights from that. So starting from the left side, the first one is building on NMKR. How can we make the Cardano NFT ecosystem more accessible by creating tools that implement the API of NMKR Dev API? So here this one is a bit a simpler one, in opinion that it's already addressing a very specific thing. So my assumption based on this question already before going into challenge is that you're already going to be aligned with the challenge if your platform would deal with this Dev API. For example, you mentioned the one-click calendar or something, and let's say you want to have an NFT for this event or like a memorial, and you use NMKR Dev API to create this, and perhaps this is just a single feature, and it's quite easy to create, like for $2,000 or $3,000. I'm just making numbers up right now, but giving it as a sample, you could already propose a feature to this challenge. Then a next one, I'm going to kind of take, okay, actually, let's go into this one and see now if the assumption which I made is going to be clear. So if you didn't know, the Fund 10 challenges are already kind of written down what they're expected, but they are written in Fund 10, under Fund 9, which and only the ones which got funded. So in order to find them, it's going to be a bit of a mess because you would have to go to Fund 10 voting results, or another option, check in this YouTube description and you will find the template for this Miro board, and here you will find the same links and questions yourselves. So opening up the challenge, just for the record, I have checked only few challenges, and actually in NMKR I haven't checked before. So it's a first experience for me too, and you will be learning the thought process I'm going through. So the question was, how can we make the Cardano NFTs ecosystem more accessible by creating tools that implement the NMKR Dev API? So if you already have a platform, then it's a question of integrating and adding features to use the Dev API. Why is it important? We should incentivize builders to create tools that advance the Cardano NFT space without being reliant on the tool to become cash positive. That we kind of address that if you created, because your need is to create memorials, or at least the use case would be creating a memorial, and that would already use the platform itself, and it will create the NFT space or create new opportunities for that area. What does success look like? Multiple NFT tools implementing the NMKR Dev API has been released, which means this is now, there are this situation where some challenges explain what is a success for a proposal under this challenge, but reading this one, it looks like it's describing the success of the challenge itself. So here it's again, just having an integration, and you, by getting integration working, would be a success for that proposal. Key metrics to measure: tools project successful release, time from funding to market, amount of users to this projects. So something you can actually track when you do an integration. For this one, I would say it was quite easy to assess, and you can see that, in my opinion, this is something where you put features into. Does anybody want to add their thoughts or insights? How would this challenge could be leveraged? And bringing back to the standards, do you have any ideas or thoughts? How could we build standards on NMKR, if at all? Because we don't have to shoehorn stuff. That's another thing.
Well, Thibaut, I don't know if anybody else has any questions. I don't want to hog up the mic, but I was going to ask you, is there any particular challenges that would be presumed as more valuable to the Cardano blockchain and ecosystem as opposed to others? Because I want to be able to provide as much value as I could to the Cardano blockchain and ecosystem, and I don't want to apply for a specific challenge that is lower on the totem pole, so to speak, as far as level of importance to the ecosystem. So in considering that, I think I provide a lot of value and fit the mold for a lot of different challenges. Which challenge would you say would have the most impact to the ecosystem on the Cardano blockchain?
Well, technically, all of these challenges are impactful because everybody voted for that, and there was I don't know how many there were, I think maybe 50 challenges, and these were what came on top. However, considering the plutocratic voting, and the ones with these are 100,000 ADA buckets, they would be then less valuable in a sense that you can have less impact on these areas. Although I would say the dRep improvement and onboarding would be a highly strong candidate to be a very impactful thing for Catalyst, but the challenge team itself considered to make it a smaller one. So for your case, because dRep improvement and onboarding is like a bit of an interesting one. Like, let's say the question here is, how do we achieve diverse and many dRep participation and easy and proper voter delegation? So in your case, there would be this using your platform to populate activities of dRep and making and contacting the delegated representatives and making them come to your platform and add the calendars, and you helping them to outreach to the wider world, like, hey, come check out this dRep assessing proposals or validating proposals, auditing proposals, or whatever they're working. So that would be quite a high impact, but that would require, again, a specific work with specific people, which is addressed to dReps. And same thing, and bringing back to the our current ideation topic, which is AI tooling for decentralized groups. I would even say that we could have a proposal under here if our target audience would be dReps, and to help them to process their information, because they are going to create a lot of video content, a lot of like documentation about which proposals are good and which are a bit needs a help or anything like that. And having an AI tool to also help them disseminate and organize that information they go through as a huge collective, because we have, if numbers are going to be correct, we may have 150 dReps, and if everybody's going to have one workshop, we're going to have tons of content and video material, which one person wouldn't be able to go through, but AI could quite easily capture. So that would be like the lower end, lower budget and impactful challenges. But yeah, Curtis, you also have your hand up.
Actually, Tiva, you pretty much mentioned a lot of what I was going to say about these categories themselves have been chosen as critical and important. So not that one's more important than other, but also that the values, the funded amount does sort of reflect, right, their highest interest. But another potential research you could do, Robert, is use something like Lightonation to look at Fund 9 and Fund 8. Some of those categories didn't exist. Some of the challenge settings didn't exist in those, but majority of them did. And you can kind of see how people voted and where the majority of the focus was. So just using some of the previous metrics to sort of gauge the community's priorities may help you with deciding which, challenge you fit in.
Curtis, thanks a lot. It's a real valuable information. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, and I'd also add a little bit of pragmatism to it and make sure that you put your proposal in a category with like fewer proposals, because that would give you a better chance of getting voted in. So yeah, that's one thing to consider.
Harsha, in reference to that, you mentioned a good point. Do you think that it'll be shunned upon if you are applying to more than one challenge, or is it just nothing?
It is actually shunned upon, and like people do get a little irritable. Specifically, PAs do get irritated because they have to write the same review again, and when you write the same review, like you get rejected, so you have to go and explain that, oh, it's the same proposal. So I tend not to do that, but it's still like your decision to make.
Right. So would you say there's a certain threshold of proposal that you should not cross? Maybe 2 or 3 proposals and no more than that,
I mean, if your proposals are completely different, I wouldn't mind up to 5, to be fair, because there have been people in the past that have put in 60 proposals and stuff like that. So
yeah, it is common that it all depends on the boundaries that you're setting on your proposal. How are you chunking out the product and the deliverables and what's supporting it and the resources that you actually need to achieve those deliverables? Are you sharing that amongst these different proposals. And, it really does kind of come down to how you're carving it down. And if they are independent standalone proposals where the resources required to achieve it and the deliverables are all unique, unique values, then I don't see a concern whether you have 2 or 200 proposals, as long as they're properly designed, then and independent, then I don't see that as
so there is another issue that has been brought up, which is, if the team is the same, do they have the capability, if all of these proposals do get voted, and do they have the capability of like managing to do all of the work? So yeah.
Exactly. I think that comes back to the resources, right? Are you sharing these resources? If so, then are you consuming more than what you have? So yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it's just that right now I have a responsive website, and I was in the process of developing the app for the website, and then I got involved with cryptocurrency a few years back when I started developing. And I said, well, shoot, instead of just doing a regular 2.0 app, might as well go 3.0 and make it a dApp or something like that, And I love the Cardano blockchain. It's very safe, it's very secure. And I said, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do something that's going to be on a stable blockchain. So that's when I started exploring the development of the app on the Cardano blockchain. So I already have proof of concept of what I'm working on right now. I believe I established a product market fit. And I think it can provide a lot of value to the Cardano blockchain. So I think this is like a marriage made in heaven should I obtain funding from the Project Catalyst. So I'm just trying to figure out the best way to be successful and fulfill the needs of the block and bring that notoriety to Cardano and the potential star power with the content that I have to Cardano, and not bring, like, again, nothing against like DeFi or NFTs and things of that nature, but I think it's time that we kind of like switch it up and add a little bit more spice and ingredients to the run-of-the-mill type of project, so to speak, that we have on blockchains. NFTs. They've beaten NFTs down like a horse, and it has a great value, and there's a place for it. There's a place for DeFi. There's a place for a bunch of different projects, but there's other things out there that we can bring to the blockchain, and that's what I'm trying to do,
Just a quick 2 cents opinion that what could help with the proposal on, at least in the Catalyst environment, is identifying what resources you need for your tool, because that's going to bring utility to the ecosystem. So if you need to leverage open source, tooling or something to build your solution, identifying what those resources are, and then how you're going to increase the value and bring utilization to the ecosystem. Bringing that to the attention of the proposal itself is extremely valuable.
If you move on to more of these challenges, so for example, in the next one would be much larger, 1 million ADA. Can we bring together stakeholders to accelerate adoption and product market fit? So the question itself would somewhat feel like, well, standards will create a lot of opportunities for these people and stakeholders to come together and find market. But when I look the title, which is Atala PRISM Launch Ecosystem, it kind of a bit confuses, because it's more, to me, it's always like a deed and certification. So let's dive into the challenge itself and see what it is about. And what we are doing here is going through the challenges, and then you have the insight of understanding where would your proposal fit the best, or where the strategy do take. So having somebody say, oh, you have a developer product, go to this challenge, may not be the best use case, and having to do your own research is actually the smartest thing here. So why this is important? Establishing a representative stakeholders working group for decentralized ecosystems speeds up learning and building the right solutions. Well, that's what we are trying to achieve here. What does success look like? Establish clear relationships and learnings early in a development cycle, leading to faster and more successful business outcomes. Again, that is our success too, to create these relationships and learn how to build on a similar standard that the platforms could integrate with each other and share modules. Key metrics to measure. Well, now it's interesting because this is compared to other challenges. I see that metrics to measure is things put out by IoT themselves. So compete an Atala PRISM Pioneer program, which is totally nothing which we planned. But I wonder, like, has anybody in this group taken Atala PRISM Pioneer program?
Yeah, I took the first cohort, and then I'm going through another cohort in Emergo as well.
Knowing what you learned from there, would that be about building standards, understanding them, and creating relationships? Or this is how to use okay, so
no, yeah, it's the introduction to Atala really does discuss, okay, well, we have these traditional methods of authentication, username, password, email, and then, which is federated. Then there's this SSI. And what that opens up is a whole new form of governance, acceptance, and feedback to systems that just didn't exist before. So it introduces a whole new framework or mindset of how you would propose solutions in this area. So I think I can see that as being a valuable requirement. Yeah.
Okay. Complete the governance framework workshop with IoG, PhD team. I would assume it goes under there as like an extra. When you already know about SSI, the next step is what do you do with this? Establish or join governance framework working group to trust over IP or another host organization. That's interesting. That will, I mean, technically, if we are building standards, it would be nice to connect with other standard creators. And because I wonder, governance framework does have quite a specification of how would you make interoperable features, if I'm not talking nonsense.
This does seem, and these are all prerequisites to proposing. Am I understanding that correctly?
And no, that would be if you get funded, then if your proposal provides, like, in addition to having a great team, product roadmap, execution plan, we look for successful proposers to execute the following part as a business plan. So
okay,
in order to execute the proposal, for the proposer, going through these steps would be extra beneficial, which is a bit of overhead. However, in the context of our ideation, we do need to build standards, like figure out how do we collaborate, and having perhaps this ecosystem standards and governance frameworks and starting them from there would be beneficial. And then it's already like a win-win for IoG2 and the Cardano ecosystem, that we are building standards that already are interoperable with the standards we are providing to open source platforms. So there is that case. Identify stakeholders, including issuers, holders, verifiers. They're trying to kind of get around and make the full cycle of figuring out basically the trust access, which was one of the main issues when we scoped down the problems also, like on the dashboards, like permission from the community, and figuring out how do we do the permission handling for all these people, and how are the data stored, and is this token gated, and that is the base of that, all of that talks. So in my opinion, this Atala PRISM challenge would actually be quite an interesting fit for this kind of proposal.
I can see how it can come from that perspective and try to address all those particular items. That would make a lot of sense. Yeah.
Robert, did you get also any ideas or Harsha of how to either leverage the current proposal or your own idea on the Atala PRISM, or where do you see value in that?
Yeah, I see tons of value. Is again, you know, I'm focused on making not only my platform but the Cardano blockchain as successful as it possibly can, to show the capabilities and diversity of what a blockchain can really do. And I think this is not only an opportunity for me and my platform, I think this is an opportunity for blockchain technology in its entirety to show the level of diversity and what we can do. We can expand from what we traditionally have as dApps right now on blockchains. And with this type of platform, we can also see the level of utility that we can provide with this type of content. To me, I think this is not just another platform, application, or website, but this is the latest media source that's going to take over the world, in my opinion. It's not because it's my idea, it's because it's very intuitive, and there is no other content like this out there. And it's going to be an honor for me to be on the Cardano blockchain to deliver that to individuals. You know, considering that the calendar has literally been here since the beginning of time, because time starts when it was recorded, and the calendar is still relevant to today and is one of our first apps. However, nobody has developed content for your calendar until schedulesite.com. Yeah, you can have your calendar, your Gmail and your iCal to mine currently existing events that have been added to your email. However, you would have to have purchased tickets to that event already. What if you're not sure if you're ready to actually go to that particular event? What if that event is free and it doesn't require tickets? You know, how would that appear on your email? How would that be scheduled? You know, look at all the events that Project Catalyst has right now, totally free. I would love to schedule those events if there was a platform available where I can go ahead and add that event to my calendar so I'll never miss a beat. And our statistics show that 86% of events that are scheduled on your calendar have a greater chance of participation. And that's the name of the game. You want participation with whatever you're doing. And the question you have to ask is, what tools are you going to use to provide that kind of content, to make it into your user base's schedule book? You know, and I feel very honored to be able to bring this type of content to Cardano.
Next challenge would be even more closer to our discussion, which is how can we make Cardano the go-to choice for building decentralized autonomous organizations? What tools can we provide to enable effective decentralized or autonomous organization creation and operation? So every challenge we are reading, it gets more closer to, okay, this is the best actually fit. So we don't know how far we get. And why is this challenge important? Blockchain applications have moved from currency to DeFi to NFT. DAOs are next. Cardano needs to be ready for when that happens. Sure. And what does success look like? There are no better ways to manage your DAO than use Cardano DAOs from small business to global communities. Cardano DAOs deliver. There is not really very specific what you actually need to do here, or for challenge or for your proposal. Key metrics to measure: number of communities engaged in collaboration using Cardano DAO creation tools. So I would assume it is meant tooling that is used by decentralized organizations. And well, for us, it is good because we are targeting decentralized organizations with these standards. However, a bit of, I would say, a bit underwhelming challenge, I would say.
Yeah, the challenge brief is kind of pretty bad. But the idea behind it, because I'm like a part of the challenge team, I'm going to explain a little bit. The idea is not just Cardano-based DAO tools, but also chain-agnostic DAO tools, because DAOs is not just about voting, but also it's running an organization. So any tool that can help with running a DAO and is not specific to a chain could also fit in.
That was a very good insight. And now a bit of, again, brain exercise. How could we leverage this proposal under this challenge? And when we talk about solution, create community standards on how to introduce interoperable AI features, and our successes, multiple open source platforms and tools are integrated with each other. Does that help us, and how?
Well, the problem statement itself even says how would, like DAO tooling and to be integrated with each other or open source DAO platforms. So that alone is taking, because the idea I have for the platform right now, Inside IQ, is offering up, hey, you can support your DAO by using Agora smart contracts, or you can use Summon smart contracts, just different parameterized contracts, and you have the choice. So that alone is a symbiosis of the different DAO tooling, DAO structures.
If I may ask a quick question, and you mentioned something in reference to decentralization, and when applying for different challenges, how much of a precedent is placed upon how decentralized your platform is? I consider my platform to be more of like a hybrid of centralized and decentralized, in the sense that my content is not only system generated content, but is also user generated content, because you can create your own events and place them on the platform for other people to schedule as well. Is that an issue, or doesn't matter?
Very complex topic. I would probably personally, I would suggest following, I'm looking for a link right now, the decentralization index that's being developed. And with that, it gives you the ability to measure your level of decentralization. And to be honest, each target audience may want a specific level of decentralization. Some want more of a centralized authority because they want you to maintain the security of my account and profile. Some people want a more decentralized. So identifying your persona, your target audience, and what level of simplicity do they want the UI UX may dictate, right, like what level of decentralization you are. So by understanding what the decentralization index value is and following that conversation may kind of provide you some insight to that.
And I have a quick question in regards to what you're developing. Do the users own the content that they create?
In what capacity, or if you could elaborate on that a little bit?
Oh, so you just mentioned user generated content, right, on your
Correct.
platform. So as long as the users own the, for example, YouTube also users generate content, but they don't own the content. YouTube does. So that's what I was asking. If they own it, then I would consider, personally, I would consider it decentralized.
Okay. Well, I guess it is the property of schedulesite.com by virtue of it being developed on the platform. However, they will be able to monetize their content just as they would on a YouTube as well. I mean, those were future plans, obviously. But yeah, that's a very good question. And, what do you think the consensus is as far as the level of decentralization? Is that something that's high on the priority? And I won't quote you on this, but do you think that's very high on the priority list for users to, I don't want to mess with it unless it's totally decentralized type of thing, or what? Or does it matter?
To be fair, I this is just what I think. lots of people don't really care because there are so many centralized organizations that have passed proposals and their code is not open source. So I don't think too many people worry too much about it. That's just my take on it. What do you guys think, Curtis and Tivo?
Yeah, thanks for asking. I agree with that complete sentiment, Harsha, that a lot of people don't care. However, we're starting to enter a new age with Lace Wallet now offering dApp certification and so forth. We're building the tools and the infrastructure so that we can programmatically measure a level of decentralization. And that may turn into a ranking system of 1 through 5, and your dApp may live somewhere. And again, this falls back to your target audience. Do they care about decentralization? If they do, we eventually will be able to see a score, and then they just may go, oh, that's a 25. I don't want to, that's too centralized. I don't own my data. I don't own my private key, whatever the case is. So we are heading down that path where it may be important because you can now measure it and then easily see it. Right now, it's quite difficult. You have to fully understand the middleware, backend, front end, and all the logic and validation that occurs to know how decentralized is this. But it does come down to your logic, or sorry, your validation. What makes a transaction of value, an exchange of value secure, should be open source and on chain. The data management, yeah, that can go both ways. You know, it's up to your platform and your users.
I think the highest goal in Cardano to achieve is decentralization, but I think we are several years behind the curve still to build towards that. And currently looking at all the challenges, they are not expecting you to have a decentralized platform. It's that your platform should be accessible as easy as possible for these organizations. So if you don't provide an API, you're going to lose a big chunk of these decentralized organizations already. And if you don't have an export option to even get out data, this is going to be you're out of the question. None of the DAOs will look at your product. So giving the access to so that the users can take their data they produced on your platform outside, that is already a super win and at current state.
Now, I'm assuming we're discussing user base or potential user base consensus. What about the consensus for individuals who will be voting on your challenge that you're proposing? What's the consensus among that particular ecosystem? Do they put a higher priority on how decentralized your dApp is going to be versus, you know, something else that may be more centralized, or it doesn't matter? I'm just curious.
It's hard to estimate. The voting is quite a black box. We see how many votes was done and how many millions of ADA they collectively hold, but capturing the sentiment of why they voted on any of the directions is, we don't know that. So it's hard to say.
No, but
Yeah,
considering
I wouldn't quote you on that, but do you feel that it has influence on how decentralized your project is? Do you think does it play a major influence on voting?
For me, the influence is because I compare proposals, and if there is a similar thing which claims to be more decentralized and provides some evidence, I probably would abstain your proposal and vote yes on their one. So there is that kind of gamification, but you will never really know until the proposals are closed and you can see all of them.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm hearing correctly, inversely, if you had a proposal where there was no other competition providing the same type of utility, and it seems to be more centralized as opposed to decentralized, you would be indifferent in reference to voting on that particular proposal.
Yeah, but there's still other factors in that. Now I know you, and if I look at the other browser, which is a bit more decentralized, but I still haven't seen these people around and not showing up and participating, I still will go to the safe route of having that at least human contact and knowing that you are invested to at least come to see the community. So
and now I think maybe like people will start considering decentralization because it'll be like a small group of dReps that would be voting on proposals. So their sentiment would matter more than like the larger Cardano community's sentiment.
A very good point, Harsha. The dRep is going to change the dynamic. Based on previous and recent funds, I would almost say we're kind of going in a circle on some of those questions, because in this circle, in Catalyst, in the niche of Cardano, reputation has a high value, and decentralization helps build your reputation because you're contributing to the ecosystem. So I think in these small circles that we have here, it's very critical, the level of decentralization. But that's not the voting community at large. There are quite a few large whales where reputation is not valued. They don't understand that reputation. That's not at all valued into their consideration. And they may vote based on something completely different. Decentralization not being a factor, might be revenue generating, right? So they may outweigh this close circle of people who highly value decentralization.
Taking a next challenge, developer ecosystem. How do we equip and support developers with tools and working infrastructure? How do we make Cardano their first choice when it comes to building dApps, innovating and collaborating? Another strong contender for the same idea. And why is that important? Beyond tools and infrastructure, we need to nurture a growing developer community with incentives for ambitious infrastructure projects. And if you're building a standard which is about connecting and collaborating all possible open source standards, it is quite ambitious infrastructure, I would say. Even though it may not go into setting up all the servers and connections and network layers and all the required pieces, but the research behind that is a very important part before actually figuring out like all the assets which we need to build on top of the research. What does success look like? Accelerate dApp development, align strategic goal in Cardano, which is increase the number of open source projects on Cardano. And I would think that with successfully implementing the standards and the working methods and the ways we collaborate, it would be something which creates more opportunities for these dApp developers to, oh, okay, I'm gonna do this module or this tool, which is already by the design, if I follow these standards, it's interoperable with all of these other platforms. So I create my tool and every platform can one click, hopefully, to integrate to their system. So it's like building stuff for marketplace, but in our context, building stuff for multiple marketplace with one solution. Key metrics to measure: number of API or developer tools with lower entry barrier to developers in Cardano, number of developers actively building on top of Cardano. And on that note, one of the tech stacks we are looking toward is SingularityNet's AI marketplace, and that is also using Cardano platform, and because they are using AGIX token, and which is now interoperable with on the Cardano protocol. So creating API transactions from AI tools from that already is incentivizing Cardano development and the protocol use case. So I feel like even in here, we are quite aligned. And what are your thoughts and general opinions around this challenge, I think? Developer ecosystem, the evolution. How does standards fit into it?
Same as all the previous ones. If you can go back to that tab of what is it? Prerequisites or sorry, the measures. Yeah, all of them, right? I mean, the number of GitHub repos, if you include the ones that are being integrated, the open source platforms or tools that are being integrated into the platform, those would count towards number of GitHub repos with tooling, strong community of developers, because it would need to be established to have that collaboration between the different projects. And then the number of open source projects would increase over time. However, the start would probably just be focusing on one or two integrations. Yeah, I see it fit as well.
And now we see the problem Robert may be finding us. So we went through multiple challenges, and each one we read is more appropriate than other. And now we are in this situation where, well, it could fit to both and the exact same proposal. So in this case, we would have to do a best mediated guess. And that comes down to gamification of that. So when does the fund starts, you would actually see also what others are proposing and where they are proposing. So if they have similar proposals, it may be time to consider collaborating with them first, but then also considering to put them under the same challenge. Else you're gonna have like proposal assessors being like, well, they are both exactly the same ones. I felt like this is more correct. I'm gonna be more rude to you. And we're not quite sure how the assessor stage will look like in the next fund. And hopefully dReps will put a bit more representation on how should the task proposals be audited and what is valued. But still, you're going to find a lot of conflicts if you're going and you're picking up opposite directions from other proposals. And in current case, the way I would choose, for example, we have the three strong areas here. My assumption is Atala PRISM is less picked because of the successful requirements. Is like to go to this program, do that, and they have like put a lot of barriers in front, although they are highly valuable educations. I did actually go through Atala PRISM if I think through, but I never did the coding part or any of that. I like the videos they shared. So, and with the developer ecosystem, it would be a bit more easier access for more new people to join in. But now again, looking at the budget, then you would be competing with perhaps higher valued proposals. And because the current practice is usually the winning percent is like 10% of the budget or 5 to 10%. Some do go above, but they are actually putting a lot of value into this too in order to get funded. And there are probably some strong groups that are already known in Cardano. Next one, how can we support effective and impactful projects and initiatives to build and support the SPO ecosystem and community, SPO tools and community projects? So we do have a community project, but now I'm always confused. Is this a community project for stateful operators? SPOs play a crucial role in a Cardano ecosystem. A Catalyst challenge would incentivize the building of SPO-based projects on Cardano, kicking off community-based to build SPO tools and platforms to offer services, events, and reshares. Well, we are offering services, events, and reshares. We are providing tooling and platforms, but we are not scoped to SPOs. So I think this is not our fit, finally something. Although we could start shoehorning, but considering the previous challenges, we don't really have to do that. We have a problem and solution without looking at challenge. It's already a perfect match. Don't really need to find the box to fit. But before I move to the next challenge, does anybody want to share their opinion on this challenge too and how?
Yeah, so the design that I'm starting to go down is actually building tokenomics around this platform. So all of the open source tooling that contributes to this platform that gets integrated, we can actually measure its utilization via API or just logs, but get its actual utilization. So our platform has a service fee or a consumption fee, and then that can be redistributed back to the open source platforms that are contributing to the integrations, and wrap that around tokenomics. And you have to stake to the pool. And if you stake to the pool, what we're hoping to do is actually offer all free services to all of Cardano. If we can build out the model properly, the stake pool, if you delegate enough ADA, then we can actually offer free usage for this, this platform to the Cardano network. And then we can also on-ramp US dollar or Ethereum or any other coin at just a pay, but it's going to get transitioned into our native token. And then that's how we distribute it back to those contributors. So there's some fit there, but you're right. There's already some that's perfectly fit, that better than this one does. That was just my thoughts on that area.
No, but that's great, because now when it's almost similar as when we discussed the dRep side. So we could break down another proposal from this holistic view and address, well, dReps, we will target you and help you disseminate your information. We have the tooling for you, we will support you. This is a little bit of budget, and this is how we can create a minimum viable product for you to have a bit of easier time assessing and disseminating information from these proposers and their video material. And in the same case here, you already have actually two business cases you are providing. One is, well, these stake pool operators now have an opportunity to connect with and promote themselves through these platforms. And another thing, because this challenge itself is providing platforms, it's already a cool place to come in, and well, we can provide like a $2,000 or $3,000 event that we also want to learn from you. To those who won, for example, everybody who wins in this category, we will create sessions with you. We go through the tech stack you are gonna build, and if they are doing dashboards, and onboard and include them into these discussions to build the standards for them too, so that in future when they want to kind of have these dashboards for the Cardano stake pools, they would be integrated with all the others. Because in the end, where we kind of see this going is that most communities will have a standard platform where they can modularize their own experience of how to manage their organizations, and it may require knowing the SPO dashboards and how their stake pools are going. And if the standard is already connected with already existing SPO dashboards or platforms that provide specific features for stake pool operators, it will make it much more easier and much more rich environment than our current scope, which was more like marketing, outreach, AI, and organizing data and disseminating that. So next step, open source dev ecosystem. So I felt like we did this, but now it's even more scope down to open source, which is even more than what we are building for. So can we build a community-owned open source ecosystem that's commercially viable to drive growth, increase opportunities, and increase projects' visibility for the whole Cardano community? So ideally, this standards will create a marketplace and also increases the visibility of that. And why is it important? Growing a marketplace and ecosystem of experts able to work on complex software is important to build and maintain the foundation of Cardano. What does success look like? More open source projects, developers and users, improved visibility and quality of open source projects, improved open source infrastructure. Quite there's a more detail here. Possible directions: education for development in Cardano Catalyst ecosystem. Very specific to what is our current scope down version. Developing common tools, frameworks, core infrastructures. Exactly, we just might as well copy paste it to our whiteboard. Yeah, both of these are somewhat similar and totally like doable, and because it's open source, it's more digestible. Then, so I don't know, do we want to spend time here? Because it's somewhat like repeated the developer ecosystem, but adding that open source element into that. Finally, we have products and integrations. What products and integrations can be developed or improved that will offer more use cases to the Cardano ecosystem that are high impact and drive more adoption? So in that case, we are technically not building products in this current proposal version, the scoped down version. We do provide services, but would that be under that? No, I think this is quite straightforward. And in my opinion, we will fit, but what would others say? Would standard be a product?
And not for this scope. I feel like for this, the problem statement and solution statement selected, not quite. The overarching platform definitely fits into the integration challenge setting, but this scoped out proposal, I personally may.
Multiple open source platforms or tools are integrated with each other. So we do have integration as a success, but yeah, I guess it would be a bit more longer shot compared to other challenges. So you can go over there. Onboarding for students. How can we support student blockchain startups through Catalyst? And how can I increase number of students, Catalyst proposers, and blockchain engineers? Well, technically having a standard would help to the students to write specification of products, but then it would, yeah, and would bring a bit of clarity, but I think it's a bit far shot for, it's not really the purpose for writing proposals. It's more purpose of integrating existing tools. So here I also see it's going out of scope. It's a good thing because then you can go to the last challenge, which is development and infrastructure. What research tools or software can improve the developer ecosystem or infrastructure to make it easier to build and scale on Cardano blockchain? Oh boy, almost reading the third time, the same challenge. But this one, I wonder, I think maybe this one perhaps is targeting even more than compared to developer ecosystem, which is equipping a developer with tools and working infrastructure, which may mean like libraries and SDKs, but this is more addressing the research side. Development research focused on following areas: creation and improvement of tools and software that helps make it easier for projects to develop on Cardano. Research analysis, creation of standards, resources, and documentation. Even though we read the similar statements from the other challenge settings, the question here is even more aligned to the previous one. So we now went through all these challenge settings. We have a bit of insights. We shared how they are related. So what I'm going to do again is I'm going to share the motherboard just in case it was lost in the mix. And then we're going to come back to the motherboard to vote on the challenge settings that we would select. We're going to target one challenge. So let's give one vote to everybody. Knowing that and our discussions which we have, select the best strategical challenge settings you think would fit for this proposal. Waiting didn't pay off. So
I apologize.
It looks like you're hovering around products and integrations. Would that be your choice?
That is correct.
Let's do it that your voice is there.
Right.
And let's see the results. And then if we open up a second voting. although we do have a winner here. Atala PRISM was a choice technically. So if we would put you as the one person voting on this one, I wonder, do we need a second choice? Because he did. I'm pretty sure the DAO one was Harsha was like, come here, come do this challenge.
I see a fitting for, many of them, honestly. And it'd be kind of cool to try to carve out some of the deliverables for each of the different challenge settings, but much of the resources would be shared. It's the team, we just have to expand that team to support the multiple proposals if they were funded.
And also, since the problem statement has DAOs in it, like the word DAO, I would think a lot of people would be like, oh, this is to do with DAOs, nothing to do with Atala PRISM and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So,
there is that danger that we need to educate voters and assessors with this proposal. But why I chose Atala, because I also was that strategic opportunity to liaison with IOG and having that a bit harder challenge to where the competition is also usually smaller. But who knows what this new challenge brings, because there's so much time between this, and businesses and enterprises understand that things take time, but communities and new entrepreneurs, they probably already left here. So who are the proposers who are left? We get to see.
I would like to integrate Atala and Roots with the platform as well, as an optional identity of authentication. We'd like to, you could use your Ethereum, MetaMask, Cardano wallet, or your Google account, whatever you want as your authentication mechanism, and then integrate it with all these other connections so that you can interact with the multiple communities. Because if we go back to the community can be gated, and they could choose, hey, you have to have this Ethereum NFT or this Cardano NFT or a number of tokens or a governance token or a specific SSI, credential, whatever they want to gate their community with can be integrated. So it would fit into that category of integrating Atala as well.
Yeah, I did not pick Atala because I recently used their SSI wallet and it wasn't as user friendly as I would have liked it. So I thought maybe it would like push people away at this point. In the future, maybe things would change.
I do agree, but I would also like to adopt and be an early adopter of this technology. But I agree for the end user. That's why for now, our platform, that's purely optional. You can opt in or opt out of using SSI. And I agree, the UX right now has major room for improvement currently.
Now, we did, in a somewhat consensus, we did pick Atala PRISM challenge settings. So one thing, in order to, once you pick a challenge, would have to explain to the voters and assessors why did you do that. And the best way to do is to describe how your proposed solution will address the challenge. And I brought two stickies here. We would create standards that are interoperable with Atala PRISM, and we would need a strong foundation for identity and like starting using Atala PRISM. Could some of you provide improvements to this, or even better statements of why basically this proposal will address the challenge we selected?
Can we review the metrics to measure?
What does success like? Establish key relationships and learnings early in development cycle, leading to faster and more successful business outcomes.
So, okay, I guess that specifically could be phrased where, because we're integrating open source solutions into a platform, it's actually increasing the utility of the underlying developer ecosystem. and connecting the developer ecosystems.
And also, I think we can reference like general identity problems with AI because of all the using existing data, like with the artists and stuff like that, and just like mention that identity becomes really critical in that aspect. I don't know if that made any sense at all, but yeah.
Definitely understand the concept of.
We are connecting developer ecosystem with research space standards to make it easier to integrate modules between different ecosystems.
There you go.
I think this ecosystem twice is annoying. We are connecting decentralized organizations. Because if we start with saying developer ecosystems twice, we may start ask, why the heck are you not under developer ecosystem?
It's a good improvement. I agree.
Yeah, there is a danger that we need to describe it in a way that does not fit that well into other challenges. Else to be like, well, I read that challenge setting and I read your description, and that is totally fitting to other challenge. Although, even though you can read, so yeah, there is a possibility of pushback, but the easier we make it to not misundertake it or misunderstood or mistaken our purpose and intention, the better.
I feel like we could address each of these metrics at an individual level too, just to state that, you know, members of the team have completed the Atala PRISM Pioneer program and understand the governance structures and necessary relationships that are required to establish trust within a network. That way that it kind of gets built into the business model.
Members of the team have gone through Atala PRISM program and are planning to use the solution in the standards. Establish a cadence of meetings and contribution and convene a home for parties to adopt and participate in the ecosystem governance. God damn. Look at these outputs. What are we doing? We're doing exactly the same.
Yeah, good job, Tivo.
So so this part I do not know. So if someone's like providing APIs, does that mean they're open source? No, right?
Oh no, you can be. We would have to have a governance surrounding what we use on our platform, and we did have a minor discussion about should we allow centralized solutions to be on the platform? You know, well, why not? If we're going to consume their services, but that's up to our community to decide, because the development of this platform is supposed to be like DAO-like. So to narrow, I'm sorry, the question again, Harsha, but I apologize.
No. So I was just curious as to why you chose specifically open source solutions and what are the advantages of not allowing like closed source?
Oh, right. If it was the API point of view, so they could still be open sourced, but offer up an API, which means they run the infrastructure and we're just executing them as an endpoint.
Yeah.
But they're still creating revenue.
Yeah.
and be open source, or we could adopt it and run it in-house on our own, but we want to be able to track that usage so that we could incentivize the development of that tool. We're trying to create a two-way value exchange.
Okay.
So we're using your tool, but hey, we now need it in a proprietary use case. But to develop it, maybe we don't have the team. Hey, you guys, since you created this tool, we'd like you to introduce this new feature and incentivize them by being part of the tokenomics model. So I'm hoping to address a two-way exchange of value. It's not just a one-way street.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Take a bit of learnings of today's session. Like, what did you find valuable? Did you learn anything new? And basically, you, Harsha, how did you feel about that? And
I thought it was great. Because what I was usually doing is what fits in best and immediately like put it in like in the challenge with like the least competition. but I like the way that you went through all the challenges, tried to see where it fit in. So it was slightly more meticulous. And then on top of that, you can add that other metric is where is the least competition. And then you arrive at like the specific challenge. So it made a lot of sense to me.
Did you learn about the ideal platform we are trying to do or the proposal? Was that clear?
So it got clear in the end. Initially, I was like, what? I still was wrapping my head around the idea.
It's quite a challenge. We do have to figure out like a presentation or a way to make it clear at the start, but I'm not even sure how to do that.
Yeah, we're actually working. That's on our current sprint.
Oh, so this is a real
FYI,
proposal you guys are working on?
So this is Digital Arc, if I've ever mentioned that to you before, Harsha. So Dave and myself and TiVo's big part of where we're taking this. But I feel like there's two separate efforts. There's the community contribution side, which I feel like this proposal is addressing, then the actual structure and business model surrounding the platform itself and the tokenomics. We want to be able to do that as a DAO and build governance and decisions around the development of the business model. But I definitely have, I feel like, a direction that I want to initiate and start with this structure. And I don't know what that looks like, you know, compared to all of this other stuff that's going on. Yeah, Tivo, I have to applaud that you kept this meeting on track, you know, the whole time. And there was a lot of challenges that brought it away, but you brought it back very quickly. That was good.
Yep. I noticed that too. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we needed to help the new person also get on board and understand the challenges. So that was the first challenge. Once we got through that, we could come back to the topic.
But to be fair, I do think you can put this one in more than one challenges. I don't know if you guys are only looking at one challenge, because I do think it would fit great in DAOs and Atala PRISM, and it could be like two completely different proposals, but that address the same solution.
Yeah, that's what I've been wondering that since the start, you know, if TiVo was like, how does it fit? Can we? But it does come back to the resource concern. Right now, our team is like 3, and I don't really, unless we're going to co-propose, but if we got 2, 3 proposals, that might be more than what we can handle. You know, I don't really know how to structure some of those proposals, to be honest.
But then you are kind of minimizing your risk, right? There's no guarantee that all 3 would pass through.
Right.
So.
Well, what we can do here is, well, technically, even this current version of proposals can be scoped down because we have outputs and outcomes, and a lot of them have different templates and examples. And when we right now looked at the Atala PRISM, we can have these events and focus on the deed side and permission side. And on the DAO version, we can introduce, well, we have these different open source platforms which are already helping DAOs to manage their data and manage their operations. We help to integrate them and address that integration style and standards on that challenge, and basically break down the outputs and outcomes under different challenges. But the meat of that is quite similar to all, although that may cause this, what Harsha mentioned before, that some people get picky, like, well, this is kind of the same thing, just different features.
I'd love to explore that because what you just said, Tivo, is I'd love to see that through, because that makes sense for me. But how does it look, or how is it represented by, say, these future dReps or the assessors? How do they review multiple proposals asking for a fairly significant and total amount? Yeah. But
so I mean, at least for Fund 10, I wouldn't be too worried about it, because there's no way all the dReps would like go through all the proposals. They would go through, I think 80 or something is like the minimum number that they need to vote on. And also the reviewing has gone down the pecking order. Now it's not like the most important thing. It's hidden under like a couple of clicks. So I wouldn't worry about them. I would still do it and make sure you get the funding so that you can make things happen.
Oh, thank you for the feedback, Harsha.
Thanks for watching and thanks for participating.